Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Sarah.
Hey, Sarah. How are you?
Hey.
I'm great, guys. How are you?
Very good. Welcome to the show.
Welcome along, Sarah. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Sweet. Well, thanks for jumping on. It's great to chat to you. First of all, let's do wine o'clock cheers.
Cheers.
And if you're listening,
Saturday
with us,
night.
enjoy.
Just deafened all the listeners on the right on the microphone there. So you're welcome.
As we would say in England, bottoms up.
So
I love it.
We don't always drink wine when we podcast, but it is Saturday evening. Whenever you're listening.
Oh yeah,
to
it's
this
Saturday,
episode.
not Friday. I have no idea what's going on.
Who knows? You don't know what day of the week it is, but
Clearly
it's
the
Saturday.
wine's working.
So the wine is open, and we are going to have an awesome chat. So Sarah is a member of the Nock Academy. She's been with us for about a year now, and we wanted to get you on today to share a little bit of your story and talk a little bit about your fitness experiences, share that with the listeners and just kind of bring everybody up to kind of current day, the training that you're doing now. And yes, just so we can hear a little bit, we want to hear the good stuff. We want to hear the struggles, and we want to share all those things with all of our listeners. So with that being said, let's dive into where I love to really, this always fascinates me with everybody's stories. And it's about kind of where your early influences were. So, thinking back to a kid, whatever kind of memories you had growing up is, what kind of place did health and fitness play in your life? What was nutrition like? What were your, general lifestyle habits like? And a little bit about kind of, what you saw and experienced as a kid is a great place to start.
Awesome. Well, I think that I was never really the sports kind of kid growing up, but obviously grew up in a healthy household, eating really nutritious foods. We understood the importance of being active, whether that was going to the park after dinner in the summer and in the spring, going tobogganing, riding our bikes, rollerblading. Always moving. Growing up, we were never just sitting at home on the couch. We were always busy, getting outside, doing lots of different things. But I always knew that I'm not a good person to sit in front of a computer all day. I always have to get up and move around and do stuff. And even as a kid, it was my sister and I riding our bikes down at the beach and the boardwalk, going swimming. Probably when I was in elementary school and kind of middle school, I was a part of track and field. I loved doing a swimming team. I think I played soccer maybe 1 year, but it was kind of just more generally just always being outside and moving. And that was always something that was really important to my family and I. And even now today, I know the importance of being healthy and moving and eating healthy. And that was kind of stemmed from my childhood. But for sure, I remember, I think it was grade 5 and 6, track and field, hurdles and long jump were my jam at school. I'm very, very tall. So those things are totally something that was up my alley, which I absolutely loved. So I think just kind of growing up in that environment and liking to try new things and not always being stuck to one specific thing. It was just kind of see where it takes you. And if you like it, great, let's keep going. And if it's not for you, then let's try and find something else. Yeah. So kind of just always moving and trying new things is kind of what my fitness journey has kind of been like since I was a kid.
I love that. And I love how it typically does mirror, what we have as a child, right? And that can be a really positive. It can be negative for some people. It can be, very different. So funny because the second you said track and field, you're into track and field. In my head, I'm like, hurdler. It's definitely a hurdler.
Yeah.
Yep. So I'm like, yep, that makes complete sense.
I remember trying hurdles once and wiping myself out and about 4 other people in about 6 hurdles. I was like, okay.
You're like 4'10", so hurdling is probably not the sport for you.
I'm 5'2", and I was half
5'2". We'll
probably shrunk. Yeah. No, low center of gravity. I was good at throwing shit. That was about it. No running involved.
There's so many things. There's so many options with track and field. There's something for everybody.
That's all right.
Yeah. Oh no, it's okay at sprint.
Yeah, short distance, right?
Yeah, short distance, fast twitch.
Yeah, no.
Amazing.
I love that, and it's such a. It's interesting when you hear the backstory and that real wide kind of range of things. So, having had the pleasure of coaching you over the last year, is you can really see that, like, there's an ability to, for you, when I watch the, you know, you see what's happening, and regardless of what it is, you know, whether it's a yoga flow, whether it's a squat, whether it's a, you know, something more complex, or it's, you know, an agility movement, you adapt super quick. And that always shows, right? You see that kind of like literacy within the movement, which is makes sense with that backstory, you know, of what you did when you were a kid. So
yeah, and I love that you kind of did it as a family. You know, I'm curious, do you still exercise as a family now? Like you mentioned your sister. And
yeah, it's honestly, my parents are in their mid to late 60s, and both my parents do yoga. My dad goes to the gym every day. We're a huge walking family, so we'll meet up and go for a walk, and it's probably one of my favorite things to do as a family unit still. And whether it's going for like an hour and a half walk or a 20-minute walk, it's just nice to get out and we move together. And sorry, there goes my headphones.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. Yeah, I was gonna say, do you know what? I think sometimes it's really hard to get motivated by yourself. So, you know, having a workout partner or a family, you know, that's involved in movement is a really great way to encourage you, but to also kind of hold yourself accountable a little bit.
Absolutely.
And I think that's where sometimes, right, people fall down, as, you know, now you've got your whole family there, or a friend or a relative, and, you know, not only can you move and reap all the benefits of movement, but, you know, just that joy of being with somebody that you care about, right? That whole kind of mental wellness that goes with the actual physical wellness. So if you know, if we were talking to let's say an individual who's listening today and they really want to get their family moving, like what kind of things did you do as a family? Like, I'm sure there were times, especially as teenage girls, it was like, oh, I don't want to go anywhere. Like, I don't even want to brush my teeth. Like, how can we get the party how can we get the party started? Like, if someone's listening and it's like, no, I want to be, you know, I want to be the person to start to make change, whether it's one person or the whole family, like what kind of things motivated you and your family to get everybody moving?
I think it was even just, I grew up in Toronto, and just even finding these new places to explore. It's like, oh, let's go walk the beach, or let's go to the brickworks and let's go walk there and explore, or let's drive down to Queens Quay and walk around there and explore it. So I think even just walking and moving and trying to attach it to something that's new that you can explore together as a family was always something that we did and that we still enjoy doing now, even as adults. And I think even, I don't know, we would go to the cottage and go swimming, and just always trying to expand where we are exploring and where we're moving. I always found to be something that we always did. And I think even now, it's as the winter in Toronto and in North America, let's go tobogganing, let's go snowshoeing, let's go skiing, let's try and get outside and embrace the winter, as awful as it is, but just try to find like the fun in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And seasons are hard, right? They really are hard. And, you know, for us moving here as English people, it was like, I think I might become an ice cube, but no, we've started to embrace, you know, this winter outside fun element, which just totally didn't exist. So I think you're right. I think it's exploring new places, and there must be, I mean, I've only been here 5 minutes, Sarah, right? But there must be so many places that are fun to visit in the winter, not the summer, right? Like totally. Be seasonal with it as well, with your adventures. So I love that. Build in an adventure, build in an activity, build in movement, maybe build in some coffee or a snack. And I'm just going to throw that out there too, right?
Coffee and snacks are huge.
No, I love that. Those are great tips, right? To get everybody moving. Love that.
Yeah. Sure. And just to add on to that, a couple of things that were so important there was being curious around, we'll just refer to it as movement, and, you know, and making it fun, right? So those two things really you mentioned there. And I think that crosses over, whether it's, as Nicky, you know, very well put, you know, if anyone's listening, what they're looking for as a family to get active, but just anybody listening, being active, continuing consistency is those things. Find things you enjoy to do and be curious about them, because, you know, it's hard to do new things, but if we're curious about finding things that we enjoy, we typically can then get hooked into something. And it might not be something you enjoy always, but if it's what you enjoy right now, you're going to keep doing it. So consistency is so important.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So going from the theme, I guess, of consistency, the last couple of years have been a bit difficult for us all to find consistency.
Absolutely.
Plus you've also been working, right? Like you work full time as well. So, you know, how are you finding consistency and movement now, Sarah, you know, with pandemic restrictions, past and present, working a full-time job and just life, right? Like how are you managing, you know, to find that consistency?
It's funny because, well, before the pandemic, I was somebody who would go to the gym 3, 4, 5 times a week and just kind of go through the motions of going, but never really fully mentally being there. Or I don't know, I would go, but not really connect with what I was doing. And then when the pandemic hit, one of my best friends, who's also in Nock Academy, we're like, okay, why don't we try and find something online together? So I have the motivation with a best friend who's also looking for the same thing. And we tried a couple different classes online, which some of them were really great, some of them not so great, but it was more about having somebody to do it with that I found really, really helpful. And when I had to work at home, I found that really, really difficult because I am somebody who I need to get out of the house. I need to work with people. I need to see different faces and have conversations all day. And I found when having to move home to work, that fitness that I was finding through an online platform, we found it. And then I would always need to be like, okay, I need to get outside and I need to walk. I need that fresh air. And every day I would walk for 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes maybe like 20 minutes, let's be honest. But it was trying to find the consistency that I found helped with my own mental health and just physically having to sit at a computer and teach all day. It took a toll on my body physically and mentally. But having a friend who was also going through something similar to be like, hey, let's do this together and let's commit to doing 3, 4 times a week. And that really, really helps with the shift in the way the world was moving. And it's funny now, it's being a part of the Nock Academy and having my set schedule. I love it because I'm like, okay, every week I log into my classes. That's like a meeting that I consider that I have. You have to show up. And I find that I'm even more consistent now with having that option than I was before. I'm more intentional about going and being present in what I'm doing than I was when I was just going to the gym and kind of mindlessly going from equipment to a mat, or it just, I'm finding I'm getting more out of it now. So yeah, I don't know. It was a huge shift from going to in person to being online. And I feel like really motivated now, more so than I did before with physically going into the gym, which has been great.
Yeah, really, really interesting. I love that, right? Like how it went somewhere you didn't think it would go. And I love, like you said previously, about having somebody there to kind of support and encourage. But what I really loved is you were there together, but you weren't together because you were online, but it still kind of felt like you were. So I think it's amazing that wasn't diluted, although you were on a virtual space, right? You were still together, you were still amping each other up, and you were still there for each other. So I love that. I love that feeling was still there, because that is a worry, right? When we go to a virtual space, whether we're doing workouts or education or whatever it might be, that we lose that human connection. So I love that you touched on that, and you said, you know, it was still there, we were still doing it together. So that was the real takeaway from me from that.
It's interesting now, because even though I haven't met a lot of these people in person, I'm like, oh, I know what teammates I'm going to see at certain sessions, and I'm like excited to be a part of that. And trying to explain that to someone who's like, oh, really? Like,
Yeah.
you like, are excited to do that? I'm like, yeah, I know who I'm going to be there with. And I'm excited to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and then go and work out, where before I would never do that.
Yeah.
So it's nice to kind of feel that community within what we've built kind of all together, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, community is the word I just wrote down here. And it's so important. And everything you're talking to is exactly what, you know, we're sitting here, for anyone who's not watching this and is listening, we're sitting with silly grins on our faces, because that's exactly what we wanted to build and have built. And, you know, hoping that people are feeling that, and the fact that, you know, and it does sound weird when you tell someone else who doesn't do it. So anyone that's listening is like, it's a bit weird. Like, how is that? You know, how have you got connection? But it does transfer, and, you know, it is different, but it is its own. It is its own. It's a community within its own thing. It's an online community. It's not an in-person community. So that's an important thing that we're trying to communicate. And I love that that your workouts are a meeting that you schedule in. That everyone listening, go back and listen to that again, write it down if you can, if it's safe to do so, write it down as a little takeaway, because that's something that I talk about a lot. Is it should you be scheduled in there. It's like your meal times, it's like your commute, it's like your work schedule. It's in there, you commit to it, and if you make it a priority, there'll always be time for it, and you'll always be able to fit that in your schedule. Very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, very important indeed. And I want to come back to the other point that you said, which was wandering around the gym just
aimlessly.
Just like, what's this thing? Okay, hey, let's do 10 of these. I think we're all a bit guilty of that. So I guess I just want to expand that out a little bit. Like, what is it that shifted? Is it you? Is it the programming? Is it your mindset? Is it just you 2 years later? Like, what has shifted for you to now be so dialed in?
I think there's a number of different things. Probably just one of the things was I had a really weird injury. And it was something that I went to sports doctors, MRIs, all of these things, and nobody could figure out what was happening. And I think it was the injury that kind of was like, okay, I need to start getting a proper program together instead of just wandering around aimlessly, thinking I'm doing what I should be doing, but not really having that proper coaching. And that's when the pandemic hit. And then I was like, okay, now what am I going to do? And then I found you guys. And it was even something as simple as you guys just saying, okay, pretend like you're holding a tennis ball in between like your back, or just saying all these different cues and becoming more mindful of what I was actually doing. And I kind of think in the back of my head, a little bit nervous about injuries again, but then just how you guys explain things, and even not in person, and just slowing down and being like, okay, I don't want to end up going back to this doctor because something else happened and then having no idea what was going on. But just, I kind of had a rude awakening that, you know, maybe you need to be a little bit more mindful when you are exercising. And then meeting you guys, and you explain things so great that even though we're not in the same room, I'm still taking in what you are saying and putting it into action. And I think kind of all of those things combined was like, I'm not going back to that gym anymore. I got what I need with you guys. And maybe just a little bit of a shift just in general, just being more mindful in what I'm doing. And especially, you know, I'm getting older. I don't want to hurt myself or go back to a place where I can't exercise. And I don't want to have an injury that I'm like, oh, I got to sit out for a month or two.
Yeah.
So just kind of dialing it into how my body is feeling and what it needs, maybe what's not feeling right. And even explaining, I remember I had something happening in my shoulder, and I was like, Gareth, something's going on in my shoulder. Can you help me figure it out? And it was just a simple changing of the hand positioning when I was doing a push-up, and problem gone. So just kind of all of these little things together, I think really made a huge difference in how I see working out and just being more mindful of everything. Like, yeah, 1 point.
Yeah. Yes. Well, do you know what? Good on you, right? For being brave enough to go seek a coach, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
There are many of us who like, no, I can figure it out for myself, right? And
Yeah.
I'll Google it.
Well, that's the thing. You're like, oh, I'll just go on YouTube and I'll look at a video and hope for the best.
Yeah, that's me all over. I'm like, Gareth, this isn't working. Did you read the instructions? No. Did you? No, I can just figure it out for myself. But, you know, there are some things where you just need a coach, you know, and I would be curious to know, Sarah, if you walked into a gym tomorrow, would you still be wandering around aimlessly? Because do you know what? I don't think you would. I think everything you've learned, certainly in my time with you, I obviously can't, you know, speak for the coaching that Gareth's done with you. I think that stays with you forever, right? That education, that, you know, those little tidbits are in there. So even if you did, you know, walk into a gym and picked up a dumbbell and started doing a goblet squat and we weren't there, I feel like you would still be successful. So I don't know. I was just kind of throwing that out there at you.
I feel like, oh, knee alignment. But it's funny, even the other day I was putting groceries away and I was lifting a massive bag of potatoes. I'm like, okay, engage your core, bend your knees, and not lifting with my back, and all of these things that you do on a daily basis. And I have both of your like voices in my head being like, okay, remember to do this, and like, don't lift from your back and use your legs, and all of these little tidbits of things that I feel very grateful to the both of you for having taught me. Or else I would have still be getting all these crazy injuries and all of these terrible things.
Walking aimlessly around the gym, or maybe just around your apartment.
But just a little bit of time. Just a little bit of investment of time and money on yourself. I think people are scared of making an investments on themselves. Has made a huge difference. That's what I'm hearing, Sarah, right? Like you've gone from being fearful of an injury, maybe not fully educated on all the equipment around you, how to use it, how to use it successfully. Woo! I haven't had that much wine. And fearful, but like I said, kudos to you. You're like, no, I need a coach and I'm going to figure out how to do this properly. And now you know how to do it properly. So
for sure.
Great stuff. Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Thank you to you guys for helping me through all of that.
Well, you're very, very welcome. It's what we love to do. So I'm interested. We're going to just backtrack a little bit because we got super carried away and so many great things. And I'm glad that we got all those things in, and I hate to ever think we missed anything. So there's some really great content. So obviously we heard about your influences as a kid, and then, you know, as the kind of current day. And there's obviously some stuff in the middle there. So what I'd love to kind of hear, I guess, is outside of your activity and movement, which is obviously very prominent in your childhood. And we all know it all changes when we become teenagers. So in those kind of like teenage years and, you know, as a younger adult, what did your fitness, like your, you know, structured fitness experiences look like before you found, you know, you mentioned the gym, which, you know, so we've heard that you've done that and you were wandering around aimlessly, and maybe there were some other bits of that too. Yeah. And lots of people doing that all the time. So don't worry if you are doing that in the gym, because you're not alone. But yeah, what was the kind of early experiences of kind of structured fitness or fitness centers or, you know, group exercise or anything like that? And, you know, and how did that kind of influence you as well into the previous conversation?
So I guess it was kind of when I went to high school. I loved phys ed. I took gym all through high school, and it was probably one of my favorite classes to take, but I kind of lost track of the importance of fitness. And, you know, high school, I was like social butterfly, going out partying was more important. And then in university, I joined a gym again and kind of got into it that way. Probably a really big pivotal moment was actually when, fast forward probably to my mid-20s, when I was living in Costa Rica and I discovered Ashtanga. And for me, I absolutely fell in love with it. And it was probably a point in my life where I was kind of having a hard time about my self-esteem, who I was as a person. I was in kind of a toxic relationship and kind of lost myself a little bit. And when I found Ashtanga, I found this power within myself. I know that sounds a little bit cheesy, but it played a really pivotal point in my life at that time. And I loved it. I met the most amazing people. I had 2 amazing instructors. And for me, it was probably the Ashtanga mixed with a little bit of CrossFit that I kind of started to get into when I was living in Costa Rica. And then when I moved back to Toronto, that's when I was like, okay, this is going to be a huge part of my life again. But probably in my like late teens, early 20s, I was going to the gym, but nothing really, just kind of going. It was like, okay, yeah, if you're going to eat half a chocolate cake, you got to go to the gym, or you need to like go for a bike ride. But it was not an important part of my life at that time. And then when I started to find new things and kind of started to grow into this new person, that's where I started to kind of try different things and kind of find like where they went. So, yeah.
I love that. And it speaks so much to the wider lens that I believe movement and health should be viewed through. Sometimes the fitness industry is guilty of painting the incorrect picture around that. That's just my opinion. But you mentioned, you joked about, I'm going to eat this chocolate cake, I'm going to go work out, and that is what the social and marketing talks too much. And what happens is we get set in that mindset. And let's be honest, nobody really wants to do that because they feel bad about something, right? So what happens is they end up in that cycle where they're like, well, I'm going to do something, I'm going to feel guilty, then I'm going to go work out, then this working out thing or going to the gym is associated with something that I think is negative. You never get out of that cycle, right? And that's why I think people are going through the motions or just not sticking with it because they don't really know why they're doing it. And having that moment, and you joked, and I was just thinking about Nikki's reaction in her head when you joked about the yoga thing being cheesy, but I'm sure she's got something to say about it. She's dying over there, but it's it's so important that you were able to connect, and what you obviously went through was this ability to connect with why it was important. And I know exactly what Nikki's going to say, but it's about finding what's important to you. And that having that flip in your mindset, right? And this is why I think so many people are going through the motions, because they're not there for the real reason. I hesitate to say the wrong reason, because it's probably linked, but it's probably not the most important thing that they're moving for in their health and really understanding, figuring it out. I know you're dying to speak, so go ahead. What were you going to say about the yoga thing?
I would have stood up and applauded, but I'm kind of in the tiniest space.
Tiny professional podcast studio.
I agree, Sarah. The yoga is more than just movement. And you know this, but I'm going to try my best to articulate it for people that are listening. It starts with the movement.
Yeah.
Then you start to explore breath. And then you start to bring the two together. And what happens is then any distraction, any noise away from yourself is muted, because you become so self-obsessed, which means you become so present. And then you are mindful in your movement, and your movement has purpose.
Absolutely.
And then that's when you end up with the goosebumps and everything that comes with it, because it just makes sense. It just feels in that moment perfect. Other than what Gareth was talking to a little bit, which is almost movement as punishment.
Yeah. For sure.
So that's kind of what I wanted to say. I just wanted to really just articulate that, because I feel so passionate about, and I'm going to say yoga, but it's more than that. And I think you understand that, Sarah, right?
Yeah,
like it's
absolutely.
It's
funny how it's even going. Maybe this is just kind of as you were going through different phases of your life, where it's okay, maybe movement is not always going to be a priority. And maybe it's like, when you're a teenager, you kind of have going through ups and downs, and maybe it's, you're like, oh, I need to like look this way to fit in and all of that kind of stuff. And then when you kind of start to figure out who you are as a person and the person that you want to be, that's when maybe you dial in a little bit more to movement and how that makes you feel and being mindful and like what you are doing. And for me, yoga played a massive role in that. And I still remember this time where it was just lying there and breathing, and I just had this like wave of emotion. I'm like, whoa, what is happening to me right now? And I still remember it because it was a turning point in how I needed to move forward as a person. And it was kind of a beautiful but sad moment for me. But at the end, I'm so happy I had that moment, because I don't know if I would be where I am today if I didn't go through that. And the movement was, I don't know, it was like a spiritually beautiful thing that I had. And I hope that everyone can experience that at some point in their life and in their fitness journey.
Yeah, and it again speaks to being curious, right? And being in those environments, even when sometimes it maybe doesn't suit, and I'm not saying it has to be yoga, it could be a million different things, but being curious about different things in life and exploring new things that, I'm a big converted being curious person, but it took me 35 years of my 40 to really get curious about a lot of other things.
So curiosity means vulnerability to some degree.
Totally.
I think then we see it as a weakness. Right. But if we can let down those barriers a little bit, who knows what can happen, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it is hard to like put yourself out there and try something new. And I remember the first time that even working out with you guys, I was like, oh man, I'm a little bit nervous to try this, even though I'm still at home, but it's still having to kind of put yourself out there and turn on your camera and be with a whole bunch of people that you've never really met before. But something great is always going to come out of trying something new, whether it's something you're like, oh, this is great, or maybe, you know what, this isn't for me. But it's kind of, if you can push yourself to try something new, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you. And, we actually had a great episode recently with one of our members, Susan, and she spoke a lot to that too. And, that really, really connects with what we were talking about on that episode. So if you haven't listened to it, everyone listening, you can go back and tune into that one. And I'll promote some other episodes while we're here. I want to bring something else in. I had this written down, and I think it's a really important time to bring it up. So you mentioned about how something good can come out of that, and that good thing might be that, hey, this is not for me, so maybe I need to be curious about something else, which is great. It's about the way you see these things. Now, what I will say about trying things new and, stepping into uncomfortable environments or doing anything in life, even if it's not something new, if it's something you mundanely do every single day, how you live through that experience is a lot to do with how you show up. Now, I bring this up, Sarah, because you, hands down, in 22 years of coaching people, are one of the most consistent people in how you show up to what you do. And
awesome, thank you.
Yeah, there isn't we were joking about this earlier because we were chatting about coming down to record, and that was the first thing you said, is you have this, you show up in a certain way, and you have this, it's like, and I'm sure you're not like super consistent with like your energy and your mood all the time. You might be, but whenever I experience you, you are. And if you're able to show up like that and say, it is what it is it always going to be the perfect workout and the perfect experience? And am I always going to feel 100% when I do it? Probably not. But can I show up with this equal level? And I guess my question that I want to know, and I'm sure lots of other people want to know, is how do you do that?
Honestly, coffee and water.
Hold on, I drink so much coffee. I call your bluff here. It's bullshit. There's something else.
I drink a lot of coffee too. It's the only way I function. I'm somebody that when I do something, I want to give 110%. Maybe not every day, but I want to give it my all. And yeah, maybe there's going to be times where at 6:30 in the morning on a Monday morning, I'm not feeling 100% into it, but I want to go and I want to be there and I want to be present and I want to try my best. And that's kind of just my mentality for lots of different things in my life. And it's funny, even at work, another teacher said to me, they're like, how do you have so much energy? And I'm like, I want to have fun and I want to have positivity and I want to work together and I want to get the best out of everything that we do in life. Life is short and I want to make the best of everything. And whether it's doing 10 burpees or 50 burpees or all of these different things that maybe we don't always want to do, once you do it, you feel amazing after. And it's, I think, the team environment that you guys have created for us. It's, I show up because I know that other people are going to be there and I want to give it my all because I know that everyone else is going to do the same. And it's just kind of having that mentality that just kind of keeps me going through the day with a lot of coffee. So
Yeah, a lot of coffee.
I take full credit for that.
It's the fuel. It's the fuel to the positivity. I love it. Well, it makes me think when you were talking there about how you show up like that, and it reminds me of a quote is, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And yeah. I would love to say I get that right all the time. I don't, but being able to think along those lines in the way I approach my life, it's easy to look back and say, maybe today I didn't do that. And, and maybe that's affecting everything else, right? I think of life like an ecosystem. You've got all these different, you've got work, you've got social life, you've got family, you've got your extracurricular things, whatever it is. And if you're showing up poorly in one part of that kind of ecosystem, it's all linked and you're gonna start to affect you, right? If you're showing up and you're giving 110% at work, but maybe I'm being a crappy parent at home, eventually my work's gonna suffer. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think everyone's probably like, how do I get that energy? I want Sarah's energy. Well, you do. Trust me, anyone listening, you do. Because, drink lots of coffee, number one. But yeah, I mean, you do have fun in what you do and you can see it in the way you show up to everything. And I could quite happily spend multiple hours in your presence and have fun. And there's this contagious energy. So yeah, absolutely. We love it.
And that, it's that optimism and yeah, great, like that willingness to try no matter what happens, because there's always something to be learned, right? Whether you fall on your butt or you land on your feet, there's always something to be learned. And I applaud you for that, because it's not easy, but I think, like Gareth was saying, if the mindset is there, everything else will follow suit. Have you always been that way, Sarah, or is this like part of what you found when you connected to yoga? Was that a changing point in, optimism and mindset, or is it something you've just had?
I think it's kind of always been there. Mm-hmm. I've always kind of been like quirky and like really outgoing and wanting to try different things. I don't know. I just always have this mentality that like life is precious. And I've lost people in my life and have had ups and downs. And I think that we have tests thrown at us through life to see, okay, how are you going to manage that? How are you going to navigate through that? And it's just, life is precious and I want to make the most of every moment that you have here. And when you're going through a tough time or you wake up one day and you're like, oh, I don't want to deal with this. Even earlier this week, I remember showing up, it was like Monday. I'm like, oh, I don't want to go to work. And I was like, after that work, and I was like, no, I'm like, you're going to go to work, you're going to kick ass and you're going to have a good day. And it's like just having that motivation to just change your headspace. It makes a huge difference. Mm-hmm. And I think that's also kind of why I started working. I like working out in the morning, not only because I know at like 5 o'clock it's not going to happen. So getting up and starting the day like that, it completely changes or helps my mindset to take on the day in a good headspace. And it's not every day is going to be great, but just to try your best. Whether it's you do have a workout and you're like, oh man, I really sucked at those push-ups today, but at least I tried. And that kind of mentality, I kind of just try and take on every day like that.
Yeah.
It's exhausting sometimes.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure of it. But, just listening to you, it's not just optimism and your personality alone. Like, I think what I'm hearing is you've surrounded yourself with good people. You're feeding your soul with what you do, what you enjoy. It sounds like, you've made time for what you enjoy as an individual, but also as a family. So you have also taken action in strategizing what your day, your week, your month, year looks like, as well as relying a little bit on, your personality that you already have. So, great job in being aware of that, surrounding yourself with like-minded people and environments to help you thrive.
I think that's one thing from the pandemic that I have gotten. And I have a tendency to be a little bit of a workaholic where I'm like, okay, 14-hour days, let's do this. And it was a moment where I was like, hey, your body is telling you that you're not okay. And that I was having constant back pain. My stomach was a mess because I was just so anxious all the time. And I was like, I need to build in me time. I need to build in time where I can exercise, where I can get outside, I can move. And that just being aware of that and intentionally building in that time every single day and not feeling guilty for that, and intentionally building a work-life balance was a game changer. And I've, especially like this year, I'm like, oh, I can get up and I can go to work. And if I'm not working until 9 o'clock every night, that's okay, because you need to have that balance. And then the next day I'm going to work in a better headspace than I was in previous years. So just trying to intentionally build in that time, and exercise is a big part of my me time. So it's been great.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And so something else I've been kind of writing notes and joining up some dots here. So it sounds like when you were kind of thriving, through childhood, it was a lot linked around who you're surrounded by. So that was your family and doing active things. It sounds like when you mentioned your yoga instructors and the other people in yoga and CrossFit, which is known to be very community driven. Working out with us at the Nock Academy, finding people and friends to do that with. It not that I'm trying to overly promote what we do at all, but it sounds like every time you were thriving within movement and everything associated to that, it was a lot to do with who was around you in the community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When I'm alone wandering in the gym by myself.
Exactly.
No, you know what? You're absolutely right. And it's, I'm a big extrovert, and it's kind of like I like thrive off other people's energy, and I just like to be around like-minded people and positive people. And I feel like it's a great fit with the Nock Academy, and you guys have created a very safe environment to have that for people of all fitness levels and of all interests. And I think it's fantastic. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. And we've obviously seen that over 20 years in the industry, and knowing that there's something that brings people together, that's something that holds people accountable, and it's a lot to do with that, right? Like who you surround yourself with in everything in life, that's important, but especially within the health and fitness.
Well, it's more than a workout.
Yeah.
Right.
We have Gareth's bad jokes every morning,
So bad.
Can't believe you put up with them. My jokes are way better.
The only people that laugh at those are new members that haven't heard them 100 times. This poor lot have had it every morning, like 3 times a week. And I'm like, oh God, shut up.
Like, oh God, can we put them on mute? No, I'm just kidding.
New sometimes. New members think it's funny. That's about it. And it's so, and it is important. And, anyone that's listening that's struggling with, walking around aimlessly and, maybe not getting that consistency, or they're trying to do something on their own. And listen, there's plenty of options for everybody. Some things work for some people, but in our experience, that when we see people thriving is when they're in that community environment, or they're at least surrounded by somebody else that's supporting them, right? It's a bit like the fitness journey. I have a lot of friends that coach, in individual environments, and, they speak to how somebody's home life can be very destructive for their goals because they're trying to do what they're trying to do, but they're not being supported with, maybe their partner or their family or their inner community. And the same thing goes whether you're doing something on your own or you're doing it as a group. Who's around you so important. So really, really key. And we have that community, but you can also find it anywhere, in a group fitness class, any type of coaching, like we mentioned, CrossFit and yoga and all these things team sports, all those things. So it's not just what we do at the Nock Academy. It's kind of there's many ways. Be curious and start to find a like-minded community. If you are struggling and you're listening today and you're thinking, I want to find somewhere where I can get that, then get out there and look for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to go back to burpees.
You talk about them a lot for someone that hates them. Just saying.
No, I like Sarah said, once you've done them, you're like, I am a beast. And
you're like, oh,
yeah, right. Like I own this. Burpees are my Anyways, I want to know what is your favorite exercise?
Okay, so what are we like? Are we combining like Pilates, yoga, or just
anything within limits? Anything you can do with your body?
Yeah,
give or take.
I mean, it could be a style. It could just be burpees, or it could just be like out and out squats.
Okay,
it can be anything. Just curious.
I think maybe plank and squats. Plank, just because I used to hate it. And then as soon as I figured out, having your shoulders over your hands and all these different things, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm not going to destroy my body if I do this properly. And I was like, oh, okay, this all makes sense now.
What's your best time?
Best plank.
I've actually never timed it, but maybe we should add it to the workout. Let's do a plank challenge.
Challenge.
You think that's funny till Monday morning when I go, all right, it's 6:32, everyone.
6 a.m. plank challenge.
Go. And then everyone's like, when are we stopping?
Let's see how the community reacts.
You're like, I don't know, let's just keep going.
You don't have any friends anymore, but you're welcome.
People just
whose idea was this? Yeah.
Plank and squats. Any type of
what about
squats?
you guys? Oh.
Any type of squat?
Probably a goblet squat, maybe.
Squat, yeah.
I don't discriminate. I'll do them all.
Any squat, all the squats.
My favorite exercise. Well, my favorite move, if I could just do one move ever and never again. No, that would be pretty good though, because it does feed wine and coffee into my mouth.
For everyone who's not watching, I was doing bicep curls with my wine glass. That's Nikki's favorite exercise.
No, I joke about this all the time, but it's so beneficial in so many ways, and I'll justify it till the cows come home. Child's pose.
Lying down.
Yeah.
No, it's not lying down. You're prone, but child's pose.
Sleeping.
You know what? Can I have 3 favorites? Because you're right. It feels so amazing.
Yeah, there's so many, mental, physical, intern. There's just. I'm not going to bore you now. It's just really good. So child's pose.
Yeah, good. Do they do that one where you just lie down and it's called corpse pose and it's just like you're dead on the floor? Just corpse pose.
It is technically translates to corpse pose, but I'm never going to say that. I'm just going to say resting pose or shavasana.
Yeah.
I know it's always that thing when you think of exercise names and it's like that one, the surrender. And I was like, I don't know if I like the name of that exercise. I feel like it's I don't know.
Anyway, stop. Answer the question.
Well, what's my favorite exercise? Favorite exercise. Wow. I would say it's got to be heavy deadlifts. And I hate them, but it's also picking up something really heavy off the floor. It's just beyond empowering.
So we've got a workout there. We got deadlifts, we got goblet squats, plank, and child's pose.
Like a superhero.
There we go. See, if you just put them all together, there's a great workout.
Squat, deadlift, plank, and child's pose. I was going to say sleeping pose. Child's pose.
It's not sleeping pose.
Just joking. I'm winding you up. It's the best.
Oh my goodness. Well, look, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And like Gareth said, you really are a ray of light. It's an absolute pleasure coaching you. You're so open-minded to feedback, but you also take on board that feedback, and I can see change in that moment. So I wish you every success for your future training and, whatever goals you have moving forward. But and thank you for sharing some insight into your journey. There was some magnificent tips in there on how you can really make an impact on your life, physically, mentally, emotionally. So you might want to go back and listen to this a couple of times and make some notes. But seriously, thanks so much for joining us. Pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to spend some time with you guys and just be a part of the journey. I love it.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening, for tuning in. We hope you got something impactful. There were so many great points. So, like we said, go back, have a little listen, write some notes, anything that's going to help you along your journey wherever you are. And as always, you know how to do the thing, like it, share it, follow it, put it out there, give it out to somebody you love and care about, because it does make a massive impact for us on the show, but also for other people in your life. That's it for today, and we will catch you on the next episode.